What's cruisin' losers? The Reap What You Sow update for Don't Starve just dropped, and it does an excellent job at replacing a boring, outdated system with a much less boring, not outdated system. With the old farming system, you basically just threw seeds at it, and either waited or threw poop at it until you got a crop, and then either ate the crop or threw it near its bird if you wanted to duplicate it. End of story. It was resource intensive, with farm plots being ridiculously expensive for the early and mid game, with only enough capacity to grow one seed at a time, resulting in them often being shunned for use as a generalist food source, only really shining when they were absolutely necessary, such as for farming specific crops for use in Wally's spices, or in very late game worlds where the immense resource cost would be less impactful. And also, it was just boring. The system contained barely any depth or anything to make it engaging to use. It was nothing more than seeds go in, crops come out. The new farming system is essentially the opposite of all this. It is dirt cheap to get started, and it's even relatively cheap to mass produce the giant variance of crops when compared to the old system. The new system has a lot more applications in general gameplay because of its cheapness. It's now more than feasible to use farming as a food source in a normal game, despite it being a bit fiddly. And of course, it has depth now, it has intuition. It's no longer just put seeds in the ground and wait till they grow. That is, if you're willing to put in the effort to make big crops. In this video, the goal is to briefly go over all the mechanics introduced and removed in the Reap What You Sow update, and discuss their effectiveness as mechanics as well as their impact on the main gameplay loop of Don't Starve Together. The changes to the game's farming system is obviously the biggest feature of this update. The old farm plot structure has been completely removed and replaced with the garden rigamajig, a structure that can be placed on a turf tile. Doing so will consume one of its 4 uses and convert the turf tile into the new farmland turf. Farmland turf can be removed by using a pitchfork, which will convert it back into whatever turf it was previously. Using a hoe or a golden hoe, you can till a space on the turf tile to designate it for planting. Insert a seed and a plant will grow. There, I just explained like one of the most basic concepts. Seed grows plant, but everyone's learning something new today. The new farming system effectively has 2 different paths that you can take. You can either plant seeds, pretty much completely ignore them, and farm regular crops. Or you can take the time to tend to your crops every need, talk or sing to them, water them, remove weeds, and fertilize them, and aim to grow the large variant of the crop, which will net you a massive 6 of the small version when hammered, or can be displayed to show off your gardening skills. Now, I have to say that I actually really like the way that the crop happiness system is designed. It's made in such a way that it's more or less completely optional. If you just want a quick and easy food source, wherein you stick seeds in the ground and food comes out, you aren't required to put in any effort whatsoever beyond inserting seeds into the soil. The crops will just grow. And even without any happiness, crops can still easily produce massive amounts of food as long as you are sure to collect lots of seeds. So with no extra effort put in, simply the bare minimum, you can still easily reap enough produce to feed a small to medium server size in combination with a crockpot. However, if you want to make a self-sustaining crop or shoot for large produce, you'll need to put time into making your plants happy. Keeping plants happy enough to give a seed back only requires a small amount of maintenance. Fulfilling some basic requirements such as removing weeds, watering occasionally, and talking to should easily make your plants happy enough to produce a decent amount of seeds and to keep your farm self-sustaining. But that being said, if you want to produce the big boys, you're going to have to dedicate a lot of your time tending to your plants and making sure they stay at perfect happiness. Although the game does have a bit of leeway, allowing room for one failed requirement when attempting to grow big crops. A lot of your time in this instance meaning pretty much all of it. Going back to what I was saying before, despite the system's complexity and also its ability to subsume all of your spare time, it's completely optional. Regular sized crops are probably going to be more than enough to feed a small to medium number of people, especially when combined with a crockpot. If you want to make your plantations propagate and keep a self-sustaining crop, it'll only require a minimal-ish time investment. I'm also pretty fond on how the system is completely free from RNG. If you fulfill all but one or all of the requirements, you are guaranteed to get a big crop. It makes going for big produce a lot more rewarding and engrossing, and less dependent on getting good rolls. This is an excellent way to design the new farming system because it successfully manages to make farming much more of a viable food option in the early to mid game, also making food production miles easier for certain characters who are more reliant on farm foods, mostly Wally, while also introducing an in-depth system, perfect for experimenting with in longer, more late-game worlds. My only real complaint with the new system is the mild lack of explanation, although there is the Gardener hat which acts as an encyclopedia of sorts. That being said, having a more direct explanation would be the very antithesis of a game called Don't Starve, making explaining the new farming system an almost paradoxical situation. Although this isn't a massive issue because of the optional nature of the more advanced farming mechanics, if you simply want food, you can get plenty without delving into the multifaceted mess that is a new system, meaning the way that it's explained doesn't have a massive impact on the new system. Greetings, dear viewer. Did you know that viewers like you are not subscribed? Crazy, I know. Since you obviously care deeply about this random and near meaningless value, would you be so kind as to Along with a complete remaking of the farming mechanics, this update also comes with a large number of tweaks, fixes, and adjustments to accommodate for the new system. A lot of these changes would be classified as nerfs, but that does not mean that they are unwarranted or out of the blue. All of them are relevant to the update in some way, designed to make the new farming system worth using by ensuring that pre-existing systems don't surpass it in efficiency. Some of these changes are honestly pretty massive. It's interesting to see that Clay is willing to make significant changes like this to their game, and honestly it's probably for the better. If, hypothetically, some of these changes weren't made alongside the update, there would definitely remain some things that would overshadow or trivialize the new farming system, impacting its usefulness in the long run, and by extension the point of the update. This goes to show that Clay knows what's best for their game. All of these nerfs and changes are sensible, and definitely contribute to making the new mechanics really shine. Bunnyman's loot table has been drastically changed. Instead of dropping 2 carrots with a 75% chance for meat and a 25% chance for a bunny puff, they now only drop one of either of those 3 items with an equal chance. This massively lowers their usefulness as a food gathering source, as before, the 2 guaranteed carrot drops and solid chance for meat, combined with their short 1-day respawn timer, made them a very potent source of both meat and vegetables, making crockpot recipes such as pierogies that required both incredibly simple to mass produce. Nowadays their potency is drastically less, but they are still by no means a bad source of food. The old Civil War method still works a charm. Additionally, nothing about how bunnymen work in combat has been changed, which means that they are still good companions for doing tasks such as killing Bee Queen. The second major food-related change is that Wickerbottom's book Applied Horticulture has been split into 2 new books, Applied Horticulture Abridged and Applied Silviculture. Horticulture Abridged functions the same as the non-abridged edition, except it can only instantly grow up to 10 plants at once. It also only affects plants whose main purpose is to produce food. This change, in combination with its increased crafting recipe, reduces Wicker's affinity for monoculture by a humongous amount. While she can still produce, some food, it's more or less a shadow of its former self. Her new book, Applied Silviculture, is in charge of growing resource-oriented plants, grass tufts, saplings, trees, etc. It costs 2 papyrus and a living log to make, and has no cap on the amount of resources it can grow, as long as they are all within the book's range. As stated above, these 2 balance changes are definitely for the better. If they weren't put out alongside the update, Wickerbottom will be able to bypass many of the nuances introduced in Reap What You Sow, and bunnies would comparatively outshine the new mechanics by simply just being really bloody good. These changes are good examples of how to do video game nerfs, not unwarranted, sensible, and without completely rendering the thing being nerfed obsolete, as bunnymen and applied horticulture are still serviceable food sources. Huzzah! Praise the Lord, it's gone. The one mechanic that everyone hated and added nothing to the game, serving only to annoy everyone and waste their time by destroying non-renewable resources. I don't think I need to explain why disease is one of the worst mechanics to ever curse DST. If you've ever had a group of berry bushes or grass tufts destroyed by disease, you know what I'm talking about. We were pretty much at a point where most players were more or less just turning it off in every world. I know I did, except if I forgot, which happened a few too many times. Thankfully, no more worlds will be ruined by disease. It's gone. Praise the Lord. Huzzah. Wormwood has been both indirectly and directly changed a decent amount by this update. Obviously, a farming-centered update is going to have significant impacts on a character whose perks revolve around farming. One of Wormwood's major appeals was his ability to skip the expensive setup of farms, as he can stick seeds straight into the ground in order to cultivate them. The impact of this perk is lessened by the update because of the newfound accessibility of farms to every character. Additionally, Wormwood has now gained some additional functionality when fertilizing himself with the 3 different fertilizer types. Manure type will instantly heal, compost will heal over time, jellybean style, and growth formulae will trigger blooming. The latter of these 3 is the most notable. Being able to trigger blooming on demand is actually a massive change to Wormwood players, allowing them to be a lot more strategic with their resources. Using growth formulae at the right time, such as before a boss fight, could end up massively paying off, as a large speed boost could be used to aid dodging attacks at the cost of having to consume more food. As of the update, blooming will also allow you to automatically tend to nearby plants, increasing Wormwood's utility in maintaining crops. Finally, Wormwood's also not negatively affected by weeds, and can determine a plant's happiness without needing a gardener hat. In my opinion, these relatively small changes are overall beneficial for Wormwood. Although one of his perks' usefulness has been reduced, he now has a lot more tactical options, which will deepen his gameplay and open up new options for play. Although farming is a pretty major part of Worm's playstyle, it hasn't been directly nerfed, meaning that Worm can still use his crops in the same way he always could. His farming abilities are just less powerful when put next to the rigamajig method. The Reapwatch You Sow update has overall been an excellent addition to Don't Starve Together, as it fixed up an outdated system and replaced it with a much more modern, intuitive and in-depth version. It also added a lot of changes and adjustments that overall add a lot to the game experience. Although it is a bit deviant from the rest of the Return of Them updates we've received so far, it is great to see the devs focus on aspects of the game that were lacking compared to some newer ones. Changes to things such as the cave biomes and now farms are great ways to reinvent old or outdated parts of the game that may have been neglected or overlooked in more recent updates. Don't Starve Together is becoming a pretty expansive game, and seeing older parts of the game get touched up is a good thing, as it ensures that all aspects of DST are going to be up to date and of a similar relevancy. Anyway, that just about concludes this video containing my thoughts on the most recent update. As per usual, with this sort of video, I always make sure to read just about every comment posted, so if you want to share your thoughts on the update or the video, please feel free. Regarding the lack of videos recently, well, there's no actual reason for this. I've just been pretty demotivated as of late, a case of the 2020 blues, if you will. Videos should be back on track, and yeah, I'm aware of how meaningless that statement is, but I'm trying. YouTube has always been something that I've just done for fun, and I don't want to take away from that by forcing myself to work on it when I can't find the energy. I know this is a pretty shitty excuse, but there really isn't any other reason. Anyway, that's all in store for this video, so thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you next time.